We're back. We're back with episode 4 of How Does This Help? With Tanner Ostler. That's how you say your last name, right?
Yep.
Tanner, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself and why you decided you want to come on the podcast?
So I guess I wanted to get on and talk mostly about depression and anxiety. I think it's something that society doesn't. We talk about it, but we don't really talk about it. We don't address it. We don't. I don't feel like people are really there for people that have depression and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had a client that came to me, and me talking to him about my issues made him feel comfortable to the point to where he went and actually got some help. And so
that's awesome, dude.
It kind of inspired me to want to help more people and
be vulnerable.
And
that's courageous, dude.
So
I think it's important to define vulnerability, because a lot of people look at vulnerability the wrong way. I think the vulnerability is the ability to share yourself without knowing how the other person's going to react. And this other person could have shamed you, done all these things, but because you opened up with this person, I mean, maybe there was other situations where you're like, I trust this guy and he's worth my vulnerability, which I think is a very important key element to the vulnerability, is understanding where and how to be vulnerable with people.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to also point out that vulnerability involves fear. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing what you're doing right now and coming on, even though you're scared right now, right? Or not scared, but you have a little bit of nervous energy.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't in my field of work, it's not, we're a masculine crowd. We don't, that's not something we do, and it's just kind of wild, I guess, just to see that, every group of people it affects,
mm-hmm. And everybody deals with it differently.
Everyone deals with it differently.
Mm-hmm. Can you elaborate a little bit on the masculine thing about why? Because I absolutely know, I have guys who growing up are you're sensitive, you're this or that, because they'd see me cry or this or that, but I was just expressing emotion.
Well, that's the thing. Just society, it's just as men, we're just supposed to just be this tough. We're not supposed to have issues, I don't feel.
Yeah.
And I don't think that anyone has any less emotion than someone else. I just think.
Yeah.
Some people hide it better than others.
Or they don't know what it is, and so they don't know how to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. Dealing with emotions is one of my biggest issues.
Yeah, I actually just found out that I was reading this National Geographic magazine when I was sick. My mom shows up. She's like, "You like emotions and talking about emotions," and slams it down my door. And I found out the emotions actually, the study of emotions, didn't really kind of start coming around until about the 1900s.
Oh yeah,
so we're only 120 years in the whole lifespan of humanity trying to study and understand emotions.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it defines everyone, who they are, why they make the decisions that they make.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything.
Yeah, and I think that I think it's important to understand I grew up in and you're probably the same product of this, as seeing manly men on movies and TV shows, and your parents, and I've rarely seen my dad cry. Sadly, one of the experiences I've seen my dad cry was when I was young and adolescent and got really angry at him and was like, "I hate you."
Oh yeah.
And then I saw him cry, and he responds with, "Michael, all I wanted for you is to know that you are loved." And but I was misunderstanding. He was trying to parent me so hard that I was like, "Get off my back,"
Oh yeah. It's very different. I guess it's. See how to word this. It's weird because everyone can feel the same thing, but every single person is going to express it different too, you know?
Oh, for sure. Like, I mean, I went to therapy for 10 years, and during this whole time of therapy, I'm feeling melancholy. Well, come to find out that I was saying melancholy when I was actually feeling anxiety. And I had no clue why I was feeling anxiety, and I didn't realize that the majority of my life I've been an anxious person.
Yeah.
So where do you think that depression kind of stems from, and where do you think that like anxiety stems from?
Ooh, that's a good one. So I think, ooh, you got me.
It's all good, dude. I don't think I know the answer, but like, I recently read this book called You're a Badass, and like I've started understanding this idea of like anxiety kind of comes from thinking too much in the future and staying too much in the future. And when you're in the future, you're thinking about all these fears of these things that could happen to you. And depression is you staying or someone staying in the past too long and thinking about all the mistakes and regrets they have. And then what happens is it starts this cycle of where you think about the future, you're scared of the future, and you validate it with things of the past, and it's just this loop.
Yeah,
at least that's what I believe.
I would agree with that. I would agree that depression is based off of things that have happened to you in the past, and anxiety is fear of what could happen. Not even necessarily what is happening, or it's just scared that something is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you want to talk a little bit about like you figuring out like when did you figure out you were depressed?
I couldn't even tell you a time that I don't remember being depressed, honestly. Like,
even as a kid?
Even as a kid. I grew up on the east side. I grew up in a Mormon family. But I was different from all the other kids because my dad made some poor decisions and he was not in my life. And I was the only kid at church that the first time I remember anything is my first Father's Day that I can remember. I was the only kid in the class filling out a Father's Day card to their grandpa instead of to my dad. And it was just, I think for me, that's where I remember it starting.
How'd that make you feel?
It made me feel very different.
You immediately knew as a kid you were different than everybody else.
Yep.
Wow.
And I was probably 4 or 5 at the time.
How'd that impact you moving forward?
I feel like it made me emotionally detach from a lot of things. It made me detach just completely from my emotions, I'd say, unfortunately. And it's really...
They were too overwhelming, and so you just wanted to not acknowledge them and just...
Yeah, extremely overwhelming. It was hard for me to understand them. You know, as a 4 or 5-year-old kid, you don't understand stuff like that. You know?
For sure.
It's, why am I different? Why is my... You know, you start to question, why does my dad not love me as much? You know, instantly you go to, I'm lesser of a person than all these other kids.
Wow, dude. Know? Those labels you're putting on yourself, I'm less of a person, I'm not lovable. Those are some pretty intense labels to put on yourself as a kid.
Yeah, it's...
No wonder why, you've been feeling that way since you were young.
Yeah, it's...
I want to tell you, Tanner, dude, I think you're lovable, and I think that you're amazing. The fact that you're here, and you and I have hung out 3 times.
Yeah, something like that.
And you're coming here, having a conversation with me. It's very humbling that you're doing this, and I think it's very courageous. And I can't say it enough. I'll say it 10 more times if I have to. But
thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's very uncomfortable, for sure.
Well, I can tell already right now, dude, that like this podcast is going to help at least one person.
And that's all I want, is that at least one person takes something from this and it helps them. And I did what I came here to do.
So where did your anxiety come from, do you think?
That one I couldn't tell you. Honestly, I just feel anxious at times. I don't know. That one I don't even know that I fully understand.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in my life, I'm still trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, I am too as well. And the only thing I've kind of figured out is like that meditation is what like pulls me away from anxiety. And if I don't like set time every single day to meditate, like there's days where I'm like, I don't feel like it, and then I totally see it impact the rest of my day like this ripple. I mean, it starts with all these I think overwhelming, I think, is probably where my anxiety comes from.
Oh yeah, it completely whatever I'm doing, if anxiety comes, it's...
You're a dad. What other roles do you have?
I'm a single parent. Yeah, I don't...
I mean, what do you do for work?
I'm a plumber.
Okay.
I'm a commercial plumber.
Okay.
Yeah.
How would you define that role? Provider?
Yeah, a provider.
Yeah, like
I'm the only income in my house, you know.
Dude, that's the fat. You're an amazing dude.
Thanks,
Like,
man.
and I'm really excited to see your growth. The fact that you are stepping up and doing this, like, and I see you impacting so many people in your life.
I hope so, man. I haven't really talked about it at all in my life, stuff like that. And him calling me and telling me that on a Saturday night.
Who did?
That kid I worked with, when he called me and told me, hey, you made me feel like I was okay, and were the reason I went and got the help that I'm getting now.
Mm-hmm.
It made me feel like, you know what, something needs to be done. You know, even if you just help one person, you need to do something about it.
Yeah. So when you helped him, you didn't go, hey, you should do this or this or this.
So
how did you go about your conversation with him?
So what happened is I saw him take medicine right after lunch. We were in his truck. We had just gotten back from lunch. I saw him taking medicine. Well, I had just gotten on antidepressants because I was going through a rough patch.
I've been on them too, dude. No shame.
Yeah. So I had just gotten on antidepressants. I was in the 2-week period of starting them, which I actually lost a friend to suicide from his depression because he was in the transition phase of antidepressants. And so I was really nervous about it. I forgot to take my pill, and I asked him, I said, hey, would that pill happen to be this? I didn't take mine, I really need to take it. And he's all, no, what's that pill for? And I'm like, hey, I'll tell you about it, but I don't necessarily want you going and telling all our coworkers. And told him about it, and then he did end up calling me a couple months later.
Check a tissue.
Yes, please.
A couple months later, so.
Yeah, it was about 2 months later he called me.
That is so cool, dude, that like you're sharing who you are as a person. You're not even knowing you're influencing this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Some level, the God or universe or here, I can just leave that over by you. What am I doing? Like you were meant, I feel like you were meant to get your pill that day so you could have that conversation with that guy. You know what I mean?
And that was my biggest fear, was forgetting that pill. And for some reason I forgot a pill. For some reason.
Yeah. I absolutely think it was, you were meant to have that conversation with that guy, and Yeah, I'm sorry you lost a friend, like suicide. I know how that feels.
Yeah.
I've lost 2 friends, and actually I don't know how your feel is. I mean, how did that make you feel?
Oh, it completely, it was.
How close were you to this person?
I was very close to this person, and he actually lived right around the corner from me, and I wouldn't even leave my neighborhood going that way if I didn't have to, just because I didn't want to go past his house. It was rough.
Thinking about him triggered you, and would you get sad and cry, and or like how did you mourn him?
Yeah, I just cry. Every once in a while I still think about him, and I think just little things, when you lose someone like that, little things remind you of that person. And one thing that reminds me of him is simply limeade. It's something just silly, but
So every single time you're at a grocery store or gas station,
yeah, I see one every once in a while. I'll just get one just because, he gave me my first one.
I've been kind of challenging everybody who's coming on here to do something.
Mm-hmm.
I want to challenge you the next time you see a Simply or a Simply Limeade, or anything that reminds you of him.
Mm-hmm.
Change it to try and change it to gratitude, and be like, I'm so grateful I had this friend, and even like this me seeing this or having this experience of being reminded is actually my friend coming to visit me.
Okay.
And tell me everything's okay.
All right.
Because I had a friend who passed, and I beat myself up because when he passed, I don't even know if he killed himself or was overdosed. I just know he wasn't in a good place.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel comfortable enough to like ask his family and all that stuff, because they didn't feel comfortable enough to like even put it in the obituary or didn't really talk about it. So, but I felt guilty about it because I was like, if only I was a better friend, he could have called me and I could have talked him out of it,
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely had those feelings because he definitely distanced himself.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I was just too young to see it.
Yeah.
Really.
How old were you when this happened?
I was probably 12 or 13.
Okay. And how old are you now?
I'm 25.
Okay. Dude, you were leaps and bounds ahead of where I was at 25. So whatever you're doing, keep going.
I had a kid. I didn't have a choice. I got to figure it out.
Did having a kid really kind of change your perspective on life?
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Do you think how do you think that impacts your anxiety and depression, being a father and having that experience?
Being a father, it definitely makes me deal with it more. It makes. I've got to be there for my kid, plain and simple. I'm not. Something I promised myself was, with my dad being gone like he was when I was a kid, I promised myself that my son would never get that from me. And so when I do end up in a bad place, I will listen. I've got a little video on my phone of him saying goodnight, right when he started to learn to talk. And I'll listen to that, and that's like, you have to be there for that little boy.
Amazing, dude.
Just, you don't have a choice.
Yeah. That reminds me of a story of the original drummer of the Beatles. So he actually got kicked out of the Beatles right before they recorded their first band, and then Ringo Starr stepped in as the drummer. And when asked like how he felt about missing the chance of a lifetime of being the biggest like rock and roll band in history, probably.
Yeah.
Like he was like, no, like I actually, by leaving the band, I was sad for such a long time, but then I met the love of my life and had a kid, and then everything clicked for me that like if I had been on the Beatles tour, I probably wouldn't have met this woman, and even if I met the woman, like I wouldn't have probably stayed. I probably wouldn't have been in a place to have a healthy relationship with her, because I'd be on the road traveling all the time. I wouldn't be able to be there for my son.
Oh,
And he's changed his purpose, and instead of focusing on, oh man, I miss the Beatles, he's like, I'm so grateful I got this experience in my family with my son.
Oh yeah.
So that's cool that you recognize that, like, that's one of your whys and one of your purposes, and keep on pushing through, because I've recently been hearing the theme over and over again that, like, the way you deal with emotions and the way that your son sees you deal with emotions is going to be like, he's going to be like, oh, that's okay. That's how things are done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I feel like our generation, I grew up LDS as well, and I was constantly told we're the chosen generation. And I think that if we are the chosen generation, I think it's because we're the ones that kind of become aware of all these patterns and go, I'm breaking the cycle.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I think there's two sides of the coin of, like, being loved too much to where people can't live their own lives, and they grow up to be these adult childs who can't make decisions on their own unless their parents are consulted, which I kind of feel like that is where my path has been. But I mean, not to compare, sorry, I'm not meaning to compare, but
no, you're good.
Anything, I just went on a long rant right there. Did anything I just say connect with you, or?
Oh yeah, as far as you know, being a parent and influencing him, I want him to know that he's okay to deal with his emotions. I've spent my whole life bearing my emotions, and
it's okay to be a man, and being a man is sharing, part of being a man is sharing your emotions.
Yeah, and it doesn't even have to be, hey, I'm going to share these emotions with everyone. I don't want him to feel like he has to do that.
Yeah.
I want him to be able to share those emotions, whether it be with me, with his mom, with the girl he's seeing, whoever it needs to be. I just want him to be able to deal with those. Because if I don't feel like, or I feel like if he doesn't deal with them, he's gonna put himself through what I'm putting myself through, or have put myself through, and it's, 25 years just buried emotions. It's not fun, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. What experiences do you have, like, to kind of teach him about emotions? Like, just sharing yourself, kind of like you were with your coworker. I mean, maybe not on a depth level of being like, I'm depressed, because, like, no kid's probably gonna understand the depths of that. But what varying degrees do you show your emotions? Is there any parts where you're like, I don't want him to see this, or are you fully just like removing the Wizard of Oz curtain and showing truly who you are and what you're dealing with?
No, he doesn't really see. I don't.
Oh, how old is he?
He's 3.
Okay, so I mean he's
really young, but I just want him to be able to. Let's see, how would I put it? Trying to put words on it.
Well, I think what you're saying is you're just teaching him by example, and you're not actually having to sit down and say, hey, I'm going to teach you about his emotion.
Right? Yeah, I want him to understand that you're going to have good emotions, you're going to have bad emotions.
Okay, perfect.
And you need to be able to deal with them, really, you know. Yes, you might be, right now the big one for him is he gets embarrassed. He gets embarrassed when he gets in trouble. That's the emotion I'm dealing with right now. And he doesn't like the embarrassment of having to say sorry. And I'm trying to teach him that that's okay to say sorry. It's okay that it bothers you, but you made a choice, and you need to deal with that and handle those emotions and be vulnerable to an extent.
Wow.
And just figure it out, you know, be a man about it.
That's amazing. I love that you say be a man about it, because I think part of being a man or being a human being in general is making decisions and dealing with those decisions, good or bad. Like, there's always consequences to every decision, and there's always opportunity costs in every single decision. Like, I can make this decision over here. I can make the decision to go to school, or I can make the decision to go party, type of thing. Like, or maybe that's a weird contrast, but I think every decision we have, like, for example, someone could decide to be famous and travel the world, but their opportunity cost they get is they're probably, unless they're their family's traveling with them, they're missing out on this opportunity cost of growing and helping their family and all these things. Yeah, I think that's amazing that you're teaching this spectrum of good and bad emotions and explaining that it's okay, like, to have them.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that he deals with them all.
Yeah, because I was told it's, like, not okay to have these emotions, and in fact, change your attitude. Like, and it wasn't even, like, my parents, it's, like, kind of the whole life was, like, if someone didn't like how you're acting as an adult figure, and you're a kid, and they tell you to stop acting that way, you hold it in, and, like, what does that do for your psyche, and for your mental health, and for your emotional health, and even your physical health?
Oh, yeah, it'll eat at you. It absolutely will. It'll affect your entire life, every aspect.
Yeah.
It'll affect every relationship you're ever gonna have. It'll affect, like you said, your physical health, your mental health, everything.
Yeah, it goes into finances. It goes into people buy things to fix their internal problems, and these things they buy externally. When I say these people, I say myself. Like, I was in that rat trap of make money, spend money, make money, spend money, make money, spend money, and I was spending money on things that I thought would make me more friends, make me more likable, make me seem cooler, or make me be perceived this certain way or this way. And I think that's wrong. Like, I think that...
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So how are you seeking help for depression and anxiety? Are you going to a therapist, or, like, what are you doing personally?
So I'm reaching out to my circle. I actually decided... I listened, so about the same time that the kid that I asked, that kid I work with about the pills, when I had my big breakdown, I really started looking into anxiety and depression and how to deal with it and stuff like that. And I came across a lot of podcasts where I turn, because I spend 8, 10 hours, 12 hours
like
a day with
self-improvement podcasts.
How I was listening to a lot of how to deal with depression and stuff like that, and I found that a lot of them were people that had become depressed. They had been on antidepressants their entire lives, and they went through the cycle of, I become, I end up on a max dose, the depression, the anxiety comes back, they switch me up, and it's just a cycle, nothing changes. Well, what I found is that you need to change your life. You need to find what's causing the depression, the anxiety, stuff like that, and you need to take that and change it. And so I made the choice to get off of my antidepressants, and
They weren't working for you.
They were working, but I wanted to fix the issue outside of just this society where we just throw pills at everything.
Okay.
And so I got off.
That's courageous, dude. That's very courageous.
It is. And I started talking to family. I started talking to my people, I guess, is the way I would put it. And I started addressing those feelings, and I changed my attitude. My attitude's been a huge one for me. Just addressing my feelings has been a big one. I've forgiven people. I actually got, me and my dad, we're actually pretty close. But
So you reconnected with him.
Yeah, so he came back into my life once he actually got out of the lifestyle he was in.
What time did he at 5 years old he was gone? Was that?
Yeah, so he actually left when I was probably 3 or 4.
Okay.
And then he decided to change his life. I was probably 11, 12.
Okay.
But he was in and out. He would come in and out.
Mm-hmm.
A big thing I did was I addressed my feelings towards him, my resentment, my selfish feelings of, hey, he did this and it just hurt me. I addressed, hey, he had his struggles, he was dealing with his own things. This made me a stronger person, and I forgave him for those struggles. This me and him are the same way. We don't sit down and have these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And I just got a hold of him one night and
called him, or
I actually sent him a text because
okay.
I was such an emotional wreck. And
so you just wrote out a very well thought text and shot it out there.
I'm like, I want you to know that I love you, I care about you. I don't hold resentment towards you. I forgive you for everything you've done. And I thank you for that because it did make me a better person. It made me into the person I am now. And thank you.
That reminds me of Johnny Cash's A Boy Named Sue.
Oh yeah, same thing.
Yeah, dude, like, wow.
It's the perspective you hold on your life. It just changing my attitude and how I feel about things. And
so how often do you see your dad now?
It could be anywhere from a couple times a week to a couple times a month.
Okay. So he lives here in Utah.
Mm-hmm.
Then?
Yeah.
What do you guys do when you're hanging out? Is it you and your kid and him, or is it just you and him?
Yeah, it just depends. We'll work on our trucks together. I'll take my son up there. My son loves to go up there. He's really good with my boy. My boy likes to go play with my little sister. I mean, we have a pretty good relationship for the most part.
Yeah. So that's awesome. You've done the work to do that, and what got you to that point of like, because that's scary to send out even a text, dude. Like, I know some people talk down on text, but like it can be scarier to send a text sometimes and hit send and then go, oh, what'd I just do?
Yeah, and I didn't want it to seem like, oh, he sent a text. You know, I wanted it to be like, I wanted him to be able to
process it.
Because, we've never had those emotions and deal with it. And
so how did he respond? Did you respond via text, or did he call you? Or?
He responded via text. He was actually at a family party when he got it. And we actually haven't even talked about it since.
Really?
Yeah, because that's just who we are.
Okay.
That's just how our relationship
So you guys are like, we're done, we're forgiven, and you just move past it.
Yeah,
that's amazing, dude. Like, right here, for everybody, you can't see it, but I have a little thing that's karma, and it's like 19 points of karma from the Dalai Lama. And let's see. Talks about anyways, it's like the essence of like, oh yeah, it says in disagreements with loved ones, deal only in current situations, don't bring up the past. And like, that's cool that you're doing that with nobody even having to tell you that.
Well, that's kind of what I wanted to do. I just wanted to release the past, It kind of is what it is.
How did you feel afterwards?
Oh, I felt amazing. That was a big, that was something that had affected me, like I said, since I was 4 or 5 years old. It was.
Do you think that was something that was like rotting your insides, and as soon as you got it out there, it was just gone?
I felt amazing after. absolutely amazing.
How was your relationship with him after, like, the first time you guys met? Like, do you guys hug now, or did you need to hug before? Like...
We hugged before and stuff like that, but I actually started calling him Pops now. I've never called him Dad my entire life. Yeah, he tells me he loves me when I leave now.
Dude, forgiveness is so powerful.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It makes you think of all the people that like I feel like I need to forgive, but it's like I have this weird duality of like with certain relationships of, do I reach out to this person and say I forgive you of this thing, and maybe they don't even think that they were in the wrong.
Well, and that's the thing, and you got to figure out where, you know, we're coming out and saying that. You don't necessarily have to come out and say it for certain situations, you know, because it's not going to do anything. Forgiveness is, I think it's for yourself, you know. I think it's something you need to do, because if not, you're holding on to that anger, that resentment and stuff like that, and it's going to eat at you.
Do you think you can forgive somebody without telling them you forgive them?
I think you can.
Okay.
Honestly, that's just my feelings.
Yeah.
You know,
I think you can too. And the reason why I say that is I think about like my first like serious relationship, and I'm not proud of this. It was in high school. Like, I cheated on that girlfriend of mine, like, because I was too afraid to be like, hey, I want to just explore what being a single dude in high school was like. But I was so like infatuated with this person, but like, she reasonably broke up with me, like totally. Like, I didn't deserve this person. Nobody deserves anybody if they're going to be continually cheated on. Like, nobody deserves that type of abuse. Like, especially like your soul. Like, that's another way of telling someone that like, I don't love you and I don't care about you is that type of stuff. Just lying in general.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely lying. I wasn't proud of who I was as a person. And I remember going to therapy, and I was beating myself up so bad about how I was like, I thought she was the love of my life. Like, we planned our whole life together, all this stuff. We did 2.5 years, and it ended. She got married a year later. But the crazy thing about it is, like, I was still dealing with the trauma, because I kept on trying to apologize to her through like letters and stuff, and she just was like, I don't want anything to do with you. Which I don't blame her. Like, and in fact, I thank her, because it's like she didn't keep on pulling me on the string.
Yeah.
And was like, I'm done, and she moved on. I think that's like, anybody who can be in a relationship that's toxic and go, I'm done, and then just walk away without looking back. I clap, because I'm not saying you can't look back, but anyway, I'm long-winded, a lot of tangents. What I'm trying to say is that I sat in a room with this therapist, and she's like, okay, I want you to pretend that she's in this chair. And I want you to tell her that you're deciding to forgive yourself, and that that you're sorry, and that like you've decided that you've held on to it for too long, and you're ready to forgive yourself, and then forgive yourself. And she told me this, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, the thought of like imagining my ex-girlfriend there was just too unbearable, uncomfortable, that for 2 weeks, when I say 2 weeks, I was going to therapy every single day for 9 to 5. He's like seeing a different therapist every single hour, and this one therapist is always like, do you want to talk to your ex? You want to talk to her? You ready to talk to her? And I'd be like, no, just anxiety would spike. And when I would see her in real life, that's the same thing. Like, and I still haven't really had the chance of really telling her how I feel. Shit, man. I mean, it's just like, what am I holding on to there?
Yeah.
You know? What is anybody really holding on to when they're holding on to these things of... Because I bought into the lie at that point that I'm not lovable and that I'll never find the love of my life. But I think that's something that I've since disagreed with now.
Yeah.
But,
well, that's the thing too, is you got to be able to, before you can forgive, you've got to go through whatever emotions you're going to go through with that. I mean, you've got to. There's not a right or wrong time to forgive someone, I don't think, until you are ready to deal with the emotions and be able to forgive them. You just need to go through the process, really.
Yes, I completely agree. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
When you told me coming on here, like I didn't know what we were gonna talk about, but I feel like this has been a really great conversation. For the record, I don't know how everybody else feels or whatever, but there's
I feel like I've gotten lost a couple times, but
that's probably my fault.
It's definitely easy to get lost. You start going and you're gone. I've done it. I'm like, here we go.
Yeah. I think when we talk as people, at least for me, when I talk, I see an idea and I'm like, ooh, I want to connect that idea, and it's like this like dot to dot and like all these data points. And so I'm like, it's one of the things I'm actually trying to work on moving forward with this podcast is being a better listener, and pausing every so often after I say instead of just like, oh, this is a cool idea, here's another cool idea.
Yeah, it's easy. That's the thing. You start talking and then it's like, oh, this reminds me of this. Oh, that reminds me of that.
Yeah, dude. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about? Like anything else? Like, I mean, we dove into a lot of how we how you feel like you got depressed. How are you currently maintaining that teeter-totter of, because it's definitely, life is ebb and flow, even if you find the tools. What tools have you found that works for you other than, actually, I want to ask that question about your circle. How did you determine who was worthy to be in your circle?
I went off of people that I feel like I could trust, people that I know that I can go to and talk to, that are going to hear me out and not judge me, and that they're just gonna let me handle my emotions, even if it's not something that they agree with, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, so they're listening to you, but they're not going like,
oh, you're wrong.
Or here's your problem.
Or a big one that really tips me over, that really bothers me is, oh, hey, I'm going, I go to talk to someone about an issue, and then they make it about themselves.
I have a bad problem with that.
That one's really hard for me in the really deep moments where it's like, hey, I need to come and talk to you, and then before I can even get done, like, doesn't even let me finish what I'm saying, cut off.
Yeah,
that's hard.
I feel like I'm just learning that lesson this last 2 years of my life. I used to think that I would hear you talk or someone else talk, and I would go, oh, this is how I relate to you. Let me tell you my story of how I relate to you. And I've even done that a couple times tonight. And I'm trying to be better at being like asking questions like, how did that make you feel? Instead of making assumptions and just trying to relate to it.
Well, I don't necessarily mean it in hey, coming to me with being able to relate, or hey, this is my situation and this is how I deal with it. It's more so just completely because for me, it's just so hard for me to come forward. It's so new and so hard to just come forward with these emotions, to instantly just get shut down about my emotions and, hey, mine are worse than yours.
Oh, so it's a comparison. It's not a relating.
It's not relation. No, I actually like relation, because then it lets me see, hey, this is how this person dealt with it. It's the downplay and the, because,
thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, for me, it's super hard to address these things, and then to hear them shot down and just downplayed, because to me, it's not. Let's see. I don't think that. I'm trying to think how to word this. It's hard for me when someone downplays someone else's emotions. especially like hurt and stuff like that, because that person's been hurt, and whether you agree with it or not, that person's feeling that way, whether you agree with it or not. And if they're coming to you to talk to you about that, you need to at least hear them out. I guess is probably the best way to put that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
So yeah, it does. How have the people in your circle, were they naturally just like that, or did you like go to them and say, hey, like, I don't need advice, I just want to vent, or like how did that relationship and the area, that space develop?
It's just kind of through my life, I've just kind of been able to find those people, you know. And it's kind of seemed like those are the people that I've kept in my life. Those are the most important people because even just talking to them about the little stuff, because the big stuff I haven't addressed, the way they handled the little stuff made me feel like they could handle the big stuff once I finally made the decision to deal with these.
Oh, so you're like almost testing the waters with the little stuff that isn't like these big things, and then once they've like essentially proven to you that like, A, you can trust them with this information. They're not gonna go, oh, you hear about Tanner and this and that.
Yeah.
And then they're not gonna belittle you.
Yeah.
And then they're not gonna tell you what to do either.
Yeah,
like,
they're gonna let me feel my feels, and if I want advice, give me the advice. And whether I decide to take their advice or not, they're not going to judge me.
That's amazing. That's amazing you have that support system, because I went through 10 years of therapy, and everybody, I even kind of was like, oh, do you go to therapy, you know? I think the best therapy is connecting with people.
Yeah.
Because shame is usually what keeps us in these patterns of like, you coping with our emotions. We hold them in, and we go, oh, this, like, I'm this or that. And if people really knew who I was, like at least that's how I was. And I would drink, and I would think about all these mistakes I'd make, and then the drinking would lead to more mistakes. And but the crazy thing about life is the moment that I stopped thinking that all these decisions were mistakes and started looking at them as like learning experiences, which I think that you've figured out is that like, hey, like, I'm going to have these experiences where I can share these small parts with somebody, and they can back. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
No, you're good.
Shit, I don't know where I was going with that. I tried to connect it, but maybe it's too far to stretch.
I think that everything in life happens for a reason.
Yes.
Everything you do is a choice, and you just need to learn from everything that you do, whether good or bad. You made a choice, learn from it, deal with it, and
move on.
Move forward.
Yeah. Move forward. I think that's a better description, because move on kind of means like
moving on is just
move forward is direction. Yeah. I like that. And it, like, do you feel like your path is more clear than it's been in the past couple of years?
Absolutely. It's rough. I'll tell you what, this has been.
I'm only laughing because I agree with you.
It's been a rough ride, but it's been good. It's been very good.
Good, dude. That's a great attitude to have. So, are there any other questions I wanted to ask? I mean, what other tools other than the circle do you use to cope, like in healthy ways?
Probably my biggest one, this isn't my biggest one, but when I get anxiety, I'll take 5-10 minutes. I'll step away. I'll just focus on my breathing, basically meditate if I need to, if it gets bad. My big thing that helps me, because like I said earlier, I don't, with my emotions, it's hard for me to understand them. And so what I found that helps me understand my emotions is I like to listen to music. That's how I process my emotions. And I've never been much of a music person early in my life, but once I hit adulthood is where I started to connect to music and feel music, basically, if that makes sense.
Does make sense. So you said two things there. You said breathing and music are two things that kind of help you cope and deal with when these spikes of anxiety or depression come through. What breathing, like, what do you do with your breathing?
I just simply close my eyes and I focus on nothing more than my breath. And when I do that, it just completely just.
Are you going in your nose, out your mouth, or what's the full process like?
I don't really have a set process. I just focus on it and I try, because when I get like an anxiety attack, my breathing speeds up. And I found that once I get control of my breathing and tell myself I can, like, hey, this is basically just an emotion, and you have control of it, you can deal with it, and just kind of take that control back, and then just focus on that in my breathing, and I just calm myself down. And
so are you like in a relaxed state of breathing, or are you going?
I guess I start with deep breaths, and then I just bring it down till I get back to my normal just breath.
And then you're just relaxed. And...
yeah, I just bring it back.
Okay,
down.
I'm ready to go.
Yep, I'm good.
How often do you feel like it's 5 minutes, and how often do you feel like it's 10 minutes?
It just depends on the situation, just depending on what caused it and stuff like that. If it's just a random one, if it's just a random anxiety attack, it's normally 5 minutes, maybe. If it's something that's caused by something, say an argument, a stressful situation I find myself in, whether that be at work or at home, whatever it is, those can tend to be a little bit longer.
Yeah, that's right.
Because those tend to have an emotion behind them, rather than just a random freak out, I guess.
Yeah. How often are you finding yourself having to do this?
So right after my big, we'll call it my breakthrough. Right after my big breakthrough, it was pretty often. It was 3-4 times a week, if not more. Now it's every maybe couple weeks.
Okay. So you're needing it less and less is what you're finding?
Yep. It was, once I had my breakthrough, my big deal with the emotions, that's when everything kind of spiraled for me. It completely twisted. I mean, it twisted my whole life upside down.
In a bad way? Or just like it was uncomfortable upside down?
It was, I don't know that I would say it was a bad way, because now I'm dealing with those things, but it was definitely, I would say it was a negative situation, because I feel like it affected my family life, the relationship I was in at the time. My mental health, the bad went to absolute worst it's ever been, but it caused me, it made me face those things, it made me face my demons, and now I'm able to figuring out how I can help myself, and that's been a hard thing for me, because I'm a codependent person. Absolutely, I codepend on people around me, and that's brought me to.
Can you define what you mean by codependency?
So I would turn to other people, looking to other people and needing other people for my happiness.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, and if they weren't happy, Did it affect you too?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Like, could you go to somebody and be happy, and if they're unhappy, it turns you unhappy?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean that's a great definition of codependency.
It's just relying on someone else 100% to deal with your emotions and I've been dealing with, I guess I've been learning the independence and stuff like that, and that's an uncomfortable one, but I'm telling you what, it's one of the best feelings.
It's worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
Worth it to push through that.
Yeah, if it's uncomfortable, you should probably do it.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of what I've learned.
Yeah. Other question I wanted to ask is, do you have any physical tells when you get anxious? Like when I say that, like I think I bite my nails. I have since I was 12, and that's I just barely learned by myself that when I'm anxious and I am, which just sounds so stupid. People are like, "Are you anxious? What's going on with you?" But I'm in such a bad habit of biting my fingernails when I get anxious that I'll get halfway through a nail and not even realize like biting through a nail, and I'll be like, "Oh, why am I doing this?" And I used to beat myself up for it, but now I'm going, "Oh, this is my body's physical way in this reality," because I'm not acknowledging it in my brain. At going, "You're anxious, dude. Take care of this."
For a long time, I was a nail biter, and I was so bad and such an anxious person, I would actually bite my nails until they would bleed, and then I would peel them. I would peel the tops of them off.
Really?
I would get that bad, yeah.
So you'd bite down to like.
I would bite till it hit the nail bed. I would eat it and then I would peel the top layers off. It was.
And at what point would you go, "Shit, what am I doing"?
About 3 fingers in, probably.
Wow.
Like, it would, yeah. It was.
And you don't do it anymore.
Mm-mm.
Dude,
No.
I need to talk to you.
It's-
What changed for you?
I don't know. I really don't.
Really?
Yeah.
I recently heard like there's this book that's like talks about like the body and like if you have certain issues or disease like problems with the body. It talks about nail biting, and it even says like, I think it says like eating at oneself in spite of the parent. And so I wonder if like you gaining your independence and you also like resolving your resentment with your dad, do you see a correlation to that at all between? How long have you not bitten your nails?
It's been a while. I actually quit biting my nails. I became, you know what it was? I started chewing on things. I went from nail biting to chewing on things. I chew on, because at work we use Sharpies. I'll pull the tabs off the side of the lid and I'll chew on those. Or on water bottle lids, that little thing right here.
You'll chew that?
I'll chew that. Anything plastic. Plastic I like to chew on.
So is that what you do now instead of chewing your nails?
Now that I think about it, yeah, that's what I do now.
Well, that's at least a step in the right direction because you're not literally eating yourself now or biting yourself off, which is, when you think about it, it's such a weird concept. Like, why is my body...
Yeah, I'm going to eat myself.
Like, eat myself because... I mean, I never ate my nails or my skin, but I definitely bite my nails. And then once the nail was gone, I'd start biting the cuticles on the side. I still do that.
I would say that I could definitely see it being taking emotional pain and not being able to understand it and turning it into physical pain to the extent of chewing it. Where I would chew it and it sounds like you were chewing it.
Yeah.
I would say that it's just, in a way, almost a self-harm thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, I don't like myself and I want to hurt myself. Wow. Wow, dude.
If you think about it,
yeah.
You know?
No, I think you're onto something. Like, really, it changes the perspective of me wanting to, try something different. Maybe carry around a pen or something like that.
Yeah, because when you take it to that level, to the bleeding level, because it's not just, hey, I'm just biting my nails off at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to be insecure as a kid, just because like at junior high when that's when I started like holding girls' hands and stuff. And there was times where I'd be like, "Oh crap, I'm gonna I'm gonna hold this girl's hand, but then I would like bite my fingernails to the point they were bleeding, and then I was like, well, it looks like I'm not holding this girl's hand. So what I'm gonna do is grab this girl's hand and get blood on her.
Yeah.
And then she'd be like, ew, gross. And then like you're like, oh, I'm a gross person.
Oh yeah, it's self-sabotage for sure.
Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about that's helped you, or any epiphanies or aha moments you want to share?
I think just if you're dealing with depression or anxiety, they're usually stem together. But I think that people need to. I know it's way easier said than done, but I think that you need to address it however you need to address it. And I think that as uncomfortable as it is, and believe me, I know that it's uncomfortable, but get the help, address it, deal with it. And I don't mean deal with it in a bad way, but get the help before it gets too much.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like if you don't deal with it, it's going to keep getting worse and worse and worse and worse, and it's going to get you to a point. And I mean, it's costed me friends and
Same.
And I mean, get the help you need, you know?
When you say address it, are you saying like tell people, tell yourself, like
face the issues for yourself, because until you face those things, I don't think that you can be a happy person. I really don't.
Mm-hmm. I think I agree with you, and I think the thought came to you were earlier talking about like facing your demons. The thought came to me of like the story of the knight that goes into the cave or goes into the castle to slay the dragon and save the princess. And I think we focus too much on the princess and the dragon, where we're like, well, what if there isn't a princess? Or what if the remove the princess, let's put a treasure there. Mm-hmm. And the treasure is you being happier. Mm-hmm. And you have to go slay this dragon, and sometimes people don't even know what their dragon looks like or what their demon looks like. Mm-hmm. And until you decide to poke your head into that cave and kind of poke around, which, you know, you might be surprised at what you come in contact with. But I think what you're saying is like go to that cave, explore and see what your issues are, and then explore the world around you to see how to cope and deal with that. And I think that's what you said with the podcast, with the circle, breathing, and then you said music. I think music is so powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
I had the experience of listening to Florence and the Machine 2 years ago at Life is Beautiful, and I'm just like crying because I clicked with me. This person's just singing their story. Like, she's just being vulnerable and singing about these emotions, and we're all in this crowd being like, I relate to you. And that's where we all love music, is because it makes you feel less alone, because you're like, someone else in the world feels like me.
Well, I feel like every single person on this earth probably has a song that, I mean, think back to your childhood, you know, there's that song that will get you. It will tear you up every time. Yeah.
And if you don't have it, then maybe you're stuffing your emotions too down too much to really like let yourself.
And believe me, I'm good at it.
I am too. I used to be good at numbing myself really bad. Mm-hmm. That was with alcohol, and that's how I kind of mediated it. But then, like, you really find out when you study alcohol. The first thing I found was like, oh, alcohol is a depressant. Mm-hmm. And then somebody told me, like, oh no, it's just a downer. It means your heart rate slows. But then it's like, why? It's called a depressant. So like, people who are depressed and keep on drinking this alcohol and relying on it to cope because they don't want to feel these emotions, mm-hmm. is just pulling them in deeper and deeper. At least that's how I felt. anyways, I mean, the thought, you don't have to go into too much detail if you don't want to, but like, is there any ways in the past where how you would cope with it that wasn't healthy? You look back and you're like, man, I'm grateful I'm not doing that anymore, but like, I'm so like, I'm in a different place, I'm a different person.
Yeah, so for me, a big one, I guess, just my mindset on it was probably the worst thing. I felt like I would be a burden. I felt like I was gonna bring people down. I felt like my own emotions were lesser than other people's, and I feel like that's the worst thing that you could do to yourself, really, because everyone has these emotions. Everyone feels, everyone's going to feel bad at times. Everyone's going to feel happy at times. No one's life is perfect. No one's always happy. And just don't bury them. Don't bury them like I did, because when they come out, they come out.
Yeah. Oh man. Thank you so much for being here, Tanner.
Yeah, thanks.
I really appreciate it. Again, I want to reiterate that we talked about depression, talked about anxiety, understanding where it comes from, but also more importantly, how to deal with it. And I think you nailed it on the head as far as like having a circle of people you trust, like actually doing the work and exploring and doing your own research on it, because I think that's important instead of just going to somebody and have somebody be like, you're depressed, here's this.
Yeah.
Because there's so many alternatives.
Antidepressants are a Band-Aid, I feel.
Yeah.
It's a Band-Aid.
I agree. And the best way to describe why I agree is I took 3 different antidepressants over a course of 2 years before I decided that this isn't working for me. And in fact, I felt like it was pulling me more into depression.
And I want, not to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
I want to say that I don't think that antidepressants are bad. I don't think that every single person out there should get off of them.
Yeah.
I think that
if it works for you,
if it works and it helps you, continue to take those. But for me, it was, hey, I wasn't on them. I had just started to get on them. I went through 1 pill cycle. And so I wasn't fully into them, and I decided that I was going to try and deal with these things outside of that, and it's been working for me.
Perfect.
For me personally.
I think that's valid, and thank you for interrupting me, because I think that's a valid and a big asterisk to this. What I was trying to say is that, like, whatever is working for you, go for it. I'm the same way. I did it for 2 years where I went through a couple different cycles, and I was like, this one's not working, this one's not working, this one's not working. And that's why I kind of realized that these doctors are literally just being like, try this, how does it make you feel? And that's like, okay. And I didn't like that. And for me personally, I felt like my highs and lows were high, and now I was low. But then what happened was, when I took antidepressants, is it squeezed both of those things together. Because I don't think you can take a pill and just have the lows go away.
Yeah, and that's how mine were, and that's what I decided I didn't like about them. Is it leveled me out, and I didn't get my highs. I didn't get my high moments. It was just kind of like.
Were you losing motivation, or like what when you say like high moments? Because I don't want people to go like, oh, I was losing this drug experience.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
Because there's natural highs in life.
Yeah, it was just like the really happy moments weren't as happy anymore.
Okay.
And the low moments weren't as low anymore. So it was just kind of, my life turned monotone, I guess would be the best way to describe it.
That would be a great way to describe it.
And I obviously I wanted my lows gone but I wanted to keep my highs.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is those lows they're never going to go away.
No.
It's, I found that I'm going to have to figure out what's causing my lows, how I'm going to deal with my lows, and I'm going to have to handle my lows to keep my highs. To keep the high joys of life.
I agree, and I feel like there's that duality in life. Is like, can you really have this high, I love life, and life is so joyful, if you haven't had this experience of like, what is this thing, and I can't believe this is my life.
Yeah, it's yin and yang.
And I don't think, for the record, I don't think that you have to like go search for these lows so you can go get this high.
Yeah,
like,
no,
I think like
sure.
the lows naturally come, because some people when I try to share that idea in the past, they go, so you're saying that you should search for the lows so you can have extreme highs? And I'm like, no, because life will already give you the lows, but life will also give you the highs.
Yeah,
and it's
sure.
all about, I think that it's about perspective. Like what you're saying is that I shifted my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And shifting your mind so that when you're during the lows, you can almost catch yourself, and instead of just like, oh crap, I'm going back into this pit that I just crawled out of.
Yeah.
Like, and recognizing that, like, and giving yourself credit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's one of the things I struggled with. Did you struggle with that?
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Because like you live with yourself. Everybody lives with themselves, and it's very easy sometimes for other people to see your progress and go, Tanner, you're doing so well. You look so well. Your countenance has changed. But sometimes, like, since we're dealing with ourselves every minute of the day, except for sleeping. It's hard to see how we're changing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, have you ever tried to look at a flower, try to bloom?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you could sit there and it just seems like forever, especially if you don't have a clock to time it.
Yep. Same thing.
Yeah.
Same exact thing.
Cool, man. Well, I won't take any more of your time. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a cool experience for sure.
Well, awesome. If you ever want to come back, do you have any other things you want to share, anything you learn, feel free to hit me up, come back. I'd love to have you.
Perfect. Sounds good. Yeah.
Cool, dude. Oh, is there anything else you want to give a shout out to? I mean, most people who come on have like I just had a guy who was doing like a business. You want to talk about his business? Is there anything that, like, any passion projects you just want to come on and talk about this?
Nothing yet. I've got a few ideas in process right now, but nothing's up and rolling yet, unfortunately.
Cool,
but
well,
just let it go.
Just like,
letting life just kind of flow right now. So.
That's the best way to go about it, and that's how I approached this podcast. Is because when I thought about, okay, I want to do this,
Mm-hmm.
and then all the work that went into it, it just seemed like this big, overwhelming thing that I was never going to do. And so I think that, like, taking baby steps, and you'll be ready. Whatever project you want to go on, whatever passion project, like, it'll be so clear, and you'll be like, I'm ready for it.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get all this stuff figured out, and
Yeah, no worries, dude.
It's life, just dealing with it,
I think what you came on and shared is amazing, and I'm sorry if that wasn't. I was just curious if, like, you had any, like, experiences. You're like, I want to give a shout out to this person or the whatever, but
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Well, thanks, Tanner.
Yeah, thank you.